this is Cathynan Herbal ABC, and I'm Cathynan. I'm called that because that's what my oldest grandson likes to call me, which is relevant because this series, this ABC that I'm going to be doing, is because I'm putting a book together for a little legacy to my grandchildren. They've all learned a little bit, whether they wanted to or not, about herbs with their nanny, and actually have shown quite a lot of interest, and it's lovely to be able to pass on my little bit of knowledge. And that's what this is also about, is that I have got quite a lot of knowledge put together now, and I don't want it to go nowhere. So yeah, I'm making the book for my grandkids and sticking this out on YouTube, and we'll see what happens to it. Yeah, it's about sharing my love of herbs and my faith in some of the remedies that we'll be talking about. And it's a two-way thing. So please feel free to comment constructive criticism where you think that maybe I've got something wrong, want to talk about it, it's fine. And also any ideas extending our communal knowledge about each herb. And I've chosen this format, quite a simple format, so that I stay on track, because I will veer off all over the place. Quite passionate about my subject, and I can always think of something to say. So what I'm going to do is, it's going to not be, if anything, fast-paced about this whatsoever. The technology, although I'm getting some excellent help elsewhere, my knowledge, I hope, will improve during the series. Yeah, so please don't expect anything too flashy. It's not going to happen. Okay, so the format that I've taken is this. So first, every time I will tell you the herb and its name, and also any Latin names or traditional folk names, whatever that I know of. Especially as some of the folk names tell us 10 times more than the Latin names do. Well, that's not true. I mean, if your knowledge of Latin is there, of course Latin names tell you something, but the folk names tell you something that's really inherent in our history, and it's a lovely way to learn about the herbs, is to learn why they're called what they're called. Then the first thing I'll go into every time after the name is the cautions. So I will say, to start with, if you have anything serious wrong with you, of course consult a professional practitioner. My main philosophy about all these herbs is that if you keep gently looking after yourself every day, then the likelihood of you falling for some of the more serious diseases is lessened. And also, if you do fall, then your recovery time is, I think, quickened, made faster. And the whole process becomes a little bit easier. I've seen my friends drop, and my system is such that I can kind of get anything and it doesn't hit me too hard. I mean, if, you know, I could get berry and die tomorrow, and that would make me sound like a hypocrite. But on a general level, my health is pretty good, especially for my age, and I'm on no pharmaceuticals whatsoever. Okay, I will own up to the odd ibuprofen, and I've had a very rough winter, which I'll tell you more about because it is again relevant because of the herbs that I use to look after myself. And that's what this is all about as well, really, is we can look after ourselves. We don't need to go running to the doctor for everything. We were taught that we should. But now, as most of you realise, these things are letting us down. And also the pharmaceuticals that are used, quite often the side effects are far worse than the original problem. So I've got a million reasons why I respect herbs so much. I'm going to stop now because if I do it too long, the technology doesn't like it. So I'm going to come back in a second. So this is the second part of my general introduction to Cathynan's Herbal ABC. After the cautions, we'll go through the cautions quickly first. So I will go through these cautions at the beginning of every herb that I talk about, primarily just to get it over with, so that we can get on to all the good stuff. And also, if you are in the category of people that this herb wouldn't be particularly good for, you can switch off if you want to. So I'll tell you straight up. I mean, the most sensitive people usually with the herbs are pregnant women, and I will always tell you if it's slightly dangerous for a pregnant women to be using each herb. And apart from that, most of the herbs I use are not dangerous. They will be dangerous to some people just about the same way as almost anything else is. If that's the case, I will tell you. Okay, so then I'll go on to the actions of each herb and their medicinal uses and what they can help prevent and sometimes cure. Quite simple, but it'll take some explaining for each herb. Then we'll go on to preparation, and the preparation that I'm using mainly is the preparations that I use, and because my lifestyle is quite hectic usually, these preparations take no time at all, and they take no great medicinal knowledge. Quite often teas, sometimes an ointment, sometimes a tincture, nothing very complicated. This will change. I've only had my most recent gardens a few years. And as, of course, they grow more mature, I have more herbs to harvest. And so my ambitions on how to use those herbs are going to change. Basically pretty basic preparation. And now the recognition of each herb. So the herbs I'm using are all either easy to grow, easy to find, or very cheap to buy in this country. This was my premise when I first started collating 5 years ago. Started to collate the knowledge I got from the course that I did, which covered everything, Ayurvedic and Chinese, which is all wonderful. And I can certainly chat about that sort of thing. But I wanted this first alphabet anyway to be totally about stuff that you can do yourself and that involve very little money. Mainly because I learned about herbs because I was a single mum of 3 kids, because the doctors was a long way away, because I had become disillusioned completely with the pharmaceutical industry, especially in the face of what the treatments they were trying to give me for my children. And that was when I genned up and started looking at alternatives, as did many, 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 many of us. I certainly wasn't alone. But I've kept at it. And being quite extreme in nature, I wanted to delve into exactly how we could look after ourselves. And I'm kind of spent the rest of my life doing that, really, more or less. So after recognition, which will help you with planting, but also, of course, foraging, we'll go on to how to grow these herbs, most of which I will have some experience of. I've been a gardener quite a lot in my life. And again, most of them are going to be pretty easy to grow because they're largely native plants, because that's my premise in doing this. After that, I go to permaculture. This is a subject that's very dear to my heart, and we will be going into why every plant that we look at is not only good for us, but it's also good for the soil and the environment in general, and the wildlife and the bees and everything. Permaculture is very important to me, and it's going to be an interesting little section of this series, I think. Then I'm going to go into the phytochemicals, and I will stutter and stammer because it's all the science, and I do know this stuff, but it nevertheless trips me up quite a lot. Just so that you know which constituents of each herb is the active constituents that are going to cause an effect. After that, I go to the magic, the folklore of the plants. We have to respect the fact that these plants have been around for a long, long while, and people all over the world have got very similar, actually, stories about each herb. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll go in, at the very end, we'll go in and do a little tarot spread for the influence which each herb. Now, I started learning my herbalism from culpepper, and I would thoroughly recommend anybody who wants to study herbs to look at him. And he was very knowledgeable about the astrology of the herbs, which planet ruled which herb and that sort of thing. So I'll be going into that. And as I say, the tarot. So that's it. So that's what my Cathynan's Herbal ABCs basically going to look like. Hiya. So today it's V is for Vervain, the most magical of herbs, on Cathynan's Herbal ABC. So the Latin name is Verbena officinalis, and it's also known as pigeon's grass. I don't know. I haven't found out why particularly. Just maybe pigeons like it. I don't know. First thing you have to do is be aware. So don't use Vervain when you're pregnant, and don't exceed the dose. That might cause you to be sick. So to prepare, you can use all the aerial parts of Vervain, the leaves, the stems and the flowers, either fresh or dry. And an average dose would be 2 to 4 grams or 2 to 4 mil 3 times a day. To make the tea, use 1 to 2 teaspoons of the dried herb or 3 times as much of the fresh herb. Now, I've just realised this, or I've just found it out, looked it up at last, that indeed the dried herb is usually much stronger than the fresh herb. You need 1/3 of the amount if you're using dried. Okay, so the dose is 1 cup, up to 3 times a day. To make the tincture, use equal parts of Vervain and 40% alcohol. As I've said countless times now, I tend to use the vodka that's available, whether it's still a 40% vodka or the only one you can get is a 37.5. It kind of works. So just keep an eye on it and yeah, experiment a little bit. I mean, I haven't used anything other than vodka for my tinctures. So I'd love it if someone pointed me in a new direction that would be more beneficial. So you macerate this for 8 weeks. That just really means you keep it in the dark and you shake it regularly. I tend to do it at least every other day, something like that. Cool, dark place. And then strain it and keep it in dark brown glass bottles. So always try and keep your stuff in dark brown glass bottles. And I know these things are expensive. So if you really can't do that, you can wrap it you can put the bottles in brown paper bags, like, you know, in the States when they tried to hide their booze. Or just in the dark, in a dark cupboard. And the tincture should be taken 5 to 10 mils in water. And again, like 3 times a day as needed. And we'll come back with the actions. Okay, so we're now looking at the actions of Vervain. It's a brilliant medicinal herb. So Vervain is antispasmodic. It relieves tension and stress. It's a tonic and a mild sedative. Vervain stimulates bile secretion and has an affinity with the liver and the kidneys. So it's good for you if you've got chronic liver and kidney problems. It is a nervine, which just means that it calms the nerves. It's diaphoretic, which means that it can induce sweating when you need to sweat things out, you know. It's hypnotic and thymoleptic. And this unfamiliar word, thymoleptic, had to look it up. It means it helps you to sleep and it improves your mood. So that's nice. It's also a galactagogue, so it's helpful to breastfeeding mums. Vervain is also an alterative. Now, an alterative is a herb which holistically supports our body and its functions. So it's good for everything about your body, really. So like a general pickup or a tonic. It's an emmenagogue. So it's helpful for menstrual issues as it stimulates blood flow in the pelvic area. Vervain is also an aphrodisiac, famously, and can prevent diarrhea. Vervain may help in post-viral fatigue syndrome, also ME, nervous exhaustion from prolonged physical exertion, epilepsy, convulsions, congested liver, jaundice. It relieves headaches, migraines, onset of flu, and amenorrhea, which is the absence of menses or periods. And just general women's problems. It's really good. And it is really associated with women. Vervain. Okay, so I'll come back and tell you the recognise, forage and grow. Okay, to recognise, forage and grow. Vervain is a tool, usually about 2 foot or 60 centimetres, but often up to 1 metre, 3.5 feet high. It has thin branching and square stems with clusters of tiny purple flowers arranged like thorns,
which open up gradually up the stem. The hairy, lobed or toothed green leaves are oblong. It doesn't have that many leaves. Vervain grows in chalky soil, rough grassland, on waste ground, on close to cliffs, and on roadside verges. It's originally from Southeast Europe, but it's been here in Britain since Neolithic times and is completely naturalised. In medieval times, it was mainly a garden plant, but escaped and is now very widespread in the south of England, less so in the north. It flowers from June to October, and to grow Vervain, you should plant the seeds in the spring with a really light covering of soil over them. Vervain needs a sunny shelter position in quite poor but well-drained soil. And it's a hardy perennial, which is great because once you've got hardy perennials, they're never going to go anywhere once they're established. So it's hardy to H5, zone H5, which means that it can survive temperatures as low as -10 to -15 and can survive cold winters, but it might not survive open exposed sites in northern areas. It's self-seeding and shouldn't need propagating once you've got it, as I say. And it's everywhere. Once you start looking for Vervain, you will find it everywhere, which thank God, because it's such a wonderful medicinal plant, and I've not used it yet. Most of this alphabet I've used, but Vervain is the one that I haven't, or one of the ones that I haven't, and it's so magical. I can't wait to get started on using Vervain a little bit more. And this, the thing about ME and fatigue, the fatigue syndrome, post-viral fatigue syndrome, so many people suffer from that these days that I think it's really worth having a remedy up your garden. So Vervain is in permaculture, not massively important to permaculture, but it is a great plant for bees and other pollinating insects. So you're not going to pull it out and put it in the bin. Well, I would hope not. I certainly would be glad to see some Vervain pop up in my garden. Well, and as I say, I'm going to get seeds. I'm going to really go for it this year. Okay, so we're talking about the phytochemicals of Vervain now. The main active constituents are alkaloids, iridoids, choline, volatile oil, flavonoids and tannins. Alkaloids are organic compounds which contain at least one nitrogen atom. They're found in peppers, especially chilies, coffee, tea leaves, tomatoes, black pepper, tonic water and potatoes, amongst other things. And in Vervain, of course. They are anti-inflammatory, neuroprotective, they protect against nerve damage, antimicrobial, antiviral, analgesic and anaesthetic, so they're painkillers, cardiovascular, so they're looking after your heart and your circulation, antioxidants, so they're getting rid of any excess free radicals, preventing possibly cancer and heart disease and things like that. Anti-diabetic and anti-obesity. Iridoids, also known as bitters, are glycosides in plants which defend the plants against infection by viruses or microorganisms and to repair damage. They're found in devil's claw, valerian, olive and plantain. So they are anti-inflammatory, anti-rheumatic, sedative and hypnotic, helps with insomnia. Excess is dangerous, but in Vervain and in the recommended dose, it'll be fine. Choline is a basic compound and an essential nutrient. It's found in edamame, navy beans, baked beans, lima beans, shiitake mushrooms, soybeans, red potatoes, wheat germ, kidney beans, quinoa, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, peanuts and cauliflower. It supports brain function, helps metabolize fat, keeps the liver healthy, and regulates memory, mood, and muscle control. Volatile oils are aromatic and so help plants by deterring herbivores and pathogens and attracting pollinators. They are complex mixtures of organic compounds and are known also as essential oils, especially after extraction. They're found in any food which has fragrance and flavour, but particularly in herbs and spices. They are beneficial for a range of ailments depending on the plant they come from. So you will get some. Most of the essential oils that you get are from herbs and spices, but there are some that come from, for instance, orange or tangerine, lemon, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's mostly mostly things used in aromatherapy. So you can tell these things by their strong smell. The volatile oils usually have got a very strong fragrance and flavour. So flavonoids are a huge group of usually water-soluble plant compounds found in, for example, kale, celery, mint, soybeans, lettuce, parsley, ginkgo biloba, which is an amazing plant. I call mine ginger baker. My friend calls hers Gary Barlow. I prefer ginger baker. They quite often line the streets of our cities. They've got really pretty leaves that turn very yellow in winter, and they're fabulous for cognitive. So if you are getting older and you see one of these trees, have some leaves off it. Make yourself a cup of tea regularly. Really good stuff. And quite expensive to buy as a supplement. These supplements, they're all well and good, but some of them are full of fillers. But even if you're fussy, it's and research, you're still spending a lot of money on things that quite often are just round the corner from your office or whatever. On your way to do your shopping. Once you realise what they are. Okay, so ginkgo biloba. Flavonoids are also in tofu, red wine, chamomile, grapefruit, and onions, berries, red cabbage, etc. They help with cardiovascular issues and blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, chronic pain, inflammation, viral infections, and cognitive disease. Tannins are yellow-brown, bitter-tasting organic substances and phenolic compounds. They're found famously in tea and coffee. That's what gives tea that kind of orangey brown colour. Red wine, chocolate, cranberries, blueberries, blackberries, plums, strawberries, pomegranates, rhubarb, squash, nuts, especially walnuts, legumes such as beans, chickpeas and lentils. And then you've got your herbs and spices, cloves, tarragon, cumin, thyme, vanilla and cinnamon. They're antioxidant, anti-inflammatory and digestive, and they help against heart disease. Okay, so we're going to come back with the best bit of Vervain, which is the magic. So this is going to be the longest section, and I've really enjoyed researching this. So when I started, not when I started studying. I started studying herbs years and years ago, but when I started my course, the course didn't deal with the magic side of it at all, and it also didn't deal with the permaculture or growing the herbs. But it was important to me that people with not a huge budget can have these things, because as we all know, when I had my 3 children, I never went inside a herb or health shop because the prices were so prohibitive. I couldn't even think of shopping like that, really. So we just muddled on, and I mean, luckily we're quite a healthy lot. And now I do. I look after myself, and I do take supplements, but it still upsets me that they're so expensive. Not a great one for going to the doctors. If you've seen my previous videos, you'll realise. And these things are amazing. And Vervain is another one. It's everywhere. Once you realise what it is, it's everywhere and it's free. It's like, why not pick a dandelion and make a cup of tea out of it, and the stinging nettles, make a cup of tea out of them. And of course, some of them taste a bit weird, but bung a load of nice stuff in with them. Get yourself I've got a massive bag of hibiscus for not too much money. And I bung that in if I think something's going to taste awful or just a bit scary. Dandelions are a bit scary tasting, but you get used to them. And you know that they're doing you so much good. And I feel like Popeye, after I've had my stinging nettle tea. That's so worth it. And all the things that weren't wrong with me when I was younger are catching up to me now I'm older. So, I don't really care when I die. I care about my quality of life while I'm here. And I'm going to look after that as much as I can, really. And the cheaper I can do it, the better. And I don't want to give my money. I don't want to spend money and have it rattling around a system that I don't really approve of. I don't approve of how we're living at all these days, so I don't really want to spend money on it. So, having said that, I'm going to get on a very much more positive note about the magic of Vervain. So it's ruled by Venus in Aries, and immediately this signifies quite a passionate and fiery, loving feeling. Vervain is used in divination, for clairvoyance, and for calming melancholy. So it cheers you up, basically. It's also said to warm and excite hearts. How lovely. In ancient Greece, it was associated with Hera and was used for protection and purification. The Celts used Vervain for sacred healing and divination. The Druids used it for magic, spiritual growth, protection, and to attract positive energy. In Europe, Vervain was used for love charms and potions and for protection against evil spirits. First Nation Americans used it for purification, healing, and spiritual connection. Excuse me. So Vervain is ruled by Venus, which bestows power to attract love and abundance. Now, my number one rule with magic is that I never use it to magnetize either love or abundance towards me personally. The phrase, be careful what you wish for, comes to mind. Also, it's my thinking that I neither need or deserve these things any more than anybody else. I think it's... Sorry, it's my writing. I can't read. I obviously got a bit passionate about my writing, about the passionate love of Vervain. I think it's more sensible to manifest, if you want to use the word, in order to benefit a community or country or even the world in general. Neither will I send it back where it came from. This idea that if someone sends you evil, you're supposed to send it back to where it came from. Well, then you're just perpetuating this evil going around. So no matter how much bad feeling is sent my way, I feel like these things reflect a lack of faith if you rely on these things. A lack of faith in yourself and in life. So I feel like I feel like not trying to manifest wealth is in itself helping me to protect myself. You know, I'm not so desperate to be a rich person. So I rattle along quite nicely, thank you. It's that sort of thing, this craving for more than the wonderful things that you've already been given. I'm already abundant. Why would I be manifesting abundant? I am abundant. So the name Vervain comes from Venus. Please tell me if there's a better way of thinking about these things. I think it's only my little opinion that I've kind of learned how to cope with all these things. And I love the idea that the plants are, well, it's not even an idea. I know plants are magic, but I don't think it's in this waving it around and some gorgeous lover's going to come around the corner. For a start off, get real. But plants are certainly magical. So the name Vervain comes from Venus and highlights the aphrodisiac properties. In the 5th century, Hippocrates, who's he's the forefather of our official medical system, recommended it against the sterility of women. In the 2nd century AD, Galen suggested using Vervain to strengthen the member. And some also associate Vervain with verber, to whip, and bundles of the herb were used as a whip in ritual and proprietary ceremonies. It's been called devil's claw and was burned to evoke spirits and to increase prophetic and magical powers. It's also been called the magician's herb. Vervain has been used as a talisman for girls about to get married. The Romans called it herba veneris, able to kindle the most dormant passions. And Nero had the ceiling rigged with sprays to shower guests with Vervain to increase their sensual and sexual satisfaction. So the orgy herb. Latin priests used Vervain to conduct peace negotiations with enemies. One in particular was Pedro Hispano, who was a doctor and was later Pope John the 21st in the 13th century. Nostradamus used Vervain to ensure good journeys and to avoid viper, dog, and wild beast bites. Ancient German warriors called it iron grass and used it to rid themselves of negative influences by sprinkling it on their swords. Early Christians said that as the plant grew on Mount Calvary, where Jesus was crucified, it was divine, and gave thanks when they gathered it for healing. They used it to bless churches and believed it was used to staunch Christ's wounds. At home, you can use it in the bath as an incense or as an essential oil to sleep better and prevent bad dreams. It will also remove negative energy from your home. Harvest Vervain after sunset or before dawn at the dark of the moon. And I guess they mean by the dark of the moon when, the moon's at the least, where it's completely waned and hasn't waxed yet. And it says, leave milk and honey to give thanks. Harvest the leaves before the flowers open. And that's even medicinally that stands because all the goodness is in the leaves. But then when the flowers open, it goes into the flowers. So you should harvest the flowers. Dig up the root when the plant dies back after autumn. Okay, and going to come back and do the tarot reading for Vervain. Okay, so the tarot of Vervain. Once again, I'm using my wonderful Herbal Tarot by Michael Tierra and Candice Cantin. And I'll read you, before we start, I'll read you what it says about the Six of Swords. And this is the card. So what I know about the Six of Swords is it's you finally going away from all the battles, all the nonsense, all the toing and froing, and finally going away and finding your peace. Which is a great start for Vervain. I've just recommended Vervain to a friend of mine who has post-viral fatigue syndrome quite a lot. And this encapsulates that feeling, you know, of being so tired of it all and just eventually sailing off on calm waters to find your peace. So I'll read what this book, The Spirit of Herbs, which goes with the Herbal Tarot. So 6 swords are travelling on a boat to a far-off shore. The sun, which can be looked at as rising or setting, indicates a new cycle beginning or an old cycle ending. The journey into a different way of viewing things has begun. A new perspective is unfolding. Allowing the old views to leave will expose a fresh approach. Be willing to let go of the cobwebs in the mind. A new location or job or a journey may be necessary to throw one into the new perspective more completely. However, just the willingness to allow thoughts to be open to change may be sufficient. Try to step back from your problems and situations so that a clearer perspective may be obtained. So Vervain, the spiritual properties. The history of Vervain is quite fascinating. Priests called it herba sacra because it was used for sacrifices. The Celts used it in their anointing waters for purification during rites and rituals. Magicians and sorcerers employed an ointment of Vervain. Many wore the bruised plant around the neck to prevent headaches, to help with sight, and to protect against venomous bites. Remember, Nostradamus said, if you're going on a journey, to stop you getting bitten by beasts. It was stated that the plant opens the inner eye to other dimensions of reality. In modern times, Vervain may again find a place in our seeking to see things from a different perspective by opening up the 6th chakra or third eye. It will aid in releasing congested thinking, thus revealing new possibilities. A calmer, clearer mind is always welcomed when new energies and situations are emerging. So the key words are travelling in mind or body, new shores approaching, new opportunities coming your way, fear of change, need to relax during the ride. And the affirmation is, I open myself to different perspectives about my life. I ride in the boat of inner faith. Okay, so we're going to use the Herbal Tarot generally. So we've got the 6 of Swords up here already. And I've shuffled the cards quite a lot, but I'm going to do a little bit more now. And my smudge stick has shed all over my tables. Apologies for the mess. Okay, so what have we got, please, for Vervain? I always think of that was too many.
I always think of Glastonbury Tor, and you know, when it was used, the priestesses used to use Glastonbury Tor, and I'm sure they'd have had Vervain. Who am I thinking of? Morgana Le Fay in the book Mists of Avalon, which is supposed to be a fiction, but I've completely absorbed it into my mythology because it's so beautiful. Here we go. So, oh, that's a nice start. So we've got Ace of Cups, the Lotus. And put that up next. So that's certainly a new beginning. It's a new beginning in love with the cups being there. I'll just read what the book says. Ace of Cups. A chalice overflowing with divine love offered from the hand of the Great Spirit is greeted by the dove of peace. The lotus, symbol of divine love, inner peace and enlightenment, blooms upon the peaceful sea of the mind. Listening to and following the heart's wisdom is the focal point of the Ace of Cups. When we listen to our heart's song, we can know our true hopes and desires. The heart is the middle path beneath our thoughts and our unconscious demands. It knows without having to figure it all out. When we move to the heart's path, we find deeper inner peace and divine grace bestowed upon us. Devotion, faith and dedication to spirit are all manifested in us when the path of love is acknowledged in our lives. So, very nice way to start this new journey, this new way of looking at things, with your, you know, following your heart's desire, I guess. So, any more for the Six of Swords and the properties of Vervain? Taking us away from all the battles, all the nonsense, and into a whole new way of looking at things, whether it be actual movement or just a change in. Oh, and the Tower, we've got the Tower here, garlic. So that's really the Tower can be quite scary. It's certainly an upheaval, but also it's always a necessary upheaval. Let's see what the book says about the Tower. So it's garlic. The Tower, ruled by Mars, represents the inner thoughts and words which have created to build up a tower of defences and outmoded ideas. So this is what we're moving away from, really, these outmoded ideas. The ego and desires may be the masters rather than the servants of the inner self. In our fortified tower, we have separated ourselves from life and others. Now the lightning bolt of inner awakening has hit us. We come tumbling down from our self-created edifice. This is a humbling experience, to say the least. We are no longer functioning from unconscious egotism or race thought. The Mars energy breaks us out of the inertia of the past. It creates an opening for a new cycle. We can no longer rationalise our old position. We are the dethroned kings and queens who must take a new perspective in ourselves and our relationships. The lightning bolt of inner awakening gets rid of the obstacles. So just further saying that, you know, the Vervain is going to awaken this new way of looking, this heart-led way of looking at life. And we have to drop all our self-importance and ego and just go off the new. So I'm going to try one more card, please, for Vervain. If we need another one, that's far too many. Don't think we need that many. Let's see what we've got here for Vervain. It's at the end. What comes after the Tower? Oh, here we go. Four of Swords. That's this resting. Oh, and we've gone back to Mullin again. That's resting after battle. So again, it's this... you're going to have to get up and do it all again in some way, but it's going to be a different way this time. With the Four of Swords after the Tower. So after much disharmony, excessive thinking and restlessness, the man has set down his sword and is taking a breather. It's time to be calm, to rest and recuperate in order to regain inner strength, reorganise thoughts and make new plans. It's maybe a good time to seek guidance, spiritually, financially or otherwise. This is not a time to be scattered and disorganised, but instead one must strive to be grounded and to understand the boundaries and forms by which one must live. If there is a feeling of being repressed or restricted, it's best to look to the inner realities by which one lives, to see where the self is not allowed freedom of positive expression. Any unconsciousness may be due to the lack of ability to confront the current situation. Take the time out to regroup and rest, but do it in such a way that you'll have greater strength and clarity to deal with the next step. So there's always going to be a next step. You know, life's a circle. So we've gone away, we've moved with the... Let's move them in so you can see them all. We've moved away in our boat, away from all the nonsense and the battles, to a new perspective, a new way of thinking. And with that, we're going on this heart-led journey. But we need to drop our egos, we need to drop our self-importance, and then we need to... That's a little bit of my smudge stick. And we need to recuperate and understand that, of course, you know, we have to be grounded along with this heartfelt... I'm trying to get them so you can see them all. I don't know whether I can. I can't see them all at the same time, sorry. I'll pick them up. So, yeah, the Six of Swords. That's our journey away into new perspective, new way of thinking. And the Ace of Cups. That's our heart-led. So twice we're told to stop all the thinking, you know, and give ourselves over to our heart-led wisdom and drop our self-importance and recuperate, knowing that we're going to have to once again deal with the world and get ourselves strong for the world afterwards. So I'm going to leave it there. That was quite a long one. Coming back next week on Cathynan's Herbal ABC with W is for Walnut. Okay, bye.